On the bottom of Ayin Beis Amud Beis, a few lines from the bottom where it says Be'elu Nish'alim Be'urim V'tumim. It speaks about the Urim V'tumim that the Kohen Gadol has and the Chayshen that they ask from him, the questions and so on. The Gemara starts with a different subject and then it comes back to the Urim V'tumim. And this is going to be connected to the Urim V'tumim. That's why it starts with this. So Ki Asa Rav Dimi Omar. When Rav Dimi came, Rav Dimi said the following halacha. Begadim sheKohen Gadol mishamish b'hem, the same 8 begadim that the Kohen Gadol wears when he does his avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, Mashuach Milchama mishamish b'hem. The Mashuach Milchama. Who was the Mashuach Milchama? So Rashi here brings that there was a Kohen that was anointed especially for the purpose to come and speak to the Yidden before they go out into the war. In the Psukim there where it says everything he tells them, encourages them going out into the war. So he was called a Mashuach Milchama. They anointed him for this purpose. So this Mashuach Milchama, Mishamish Behen, if he wants to come and serve in the Beis HaMikdash, he's also a Kohen. So if he wants to come and serve in the Beis HaMikdash, he also has to wear all 8 garments like a Kohen Gadol. What's the source for this? That Mashuach Milchama wears the 8 begadim like a Kohen Gadol. Shenamar, because it says by Aaron HaKohen, Uvigdei HaKodesh Asher LaAaron, the Bigdei HaKodesh that Aaron HaKohen wears, Yiyu L'banav Acharav, should be for his children, for his descendants after him. So the word Acharav is extra. It says Banav, so we know it's Acharav. What does that teach me? Lemi Sheba Bigdula Acharav. Anybody that's appointed to a level of greatness that follows Aaron HaKohen should have to wear these 8 begadim. So the Mashuach Milchama is also considered to be a person appointed to this level of greatness. He's not just a regular Kohen head yet. He has a unique position. And therefore he also is required to wear the Shmeina Begadim. So now the Gemara is going to ask a few questions on this, and eventually the Gemara is going to bring another pshat in this statement here of Rav Dimi, which will connect back to the Urim V'tumim. Masav Rav Ada Barava, that is, Rav Ada Barava asked on this statement of Rav Dimi, V'amrila Kedi. Others say that there was a Chacham by the name of Kedi. He asked the question. So it says in the Braisa as follows. Yochel, I would think, Yehei b'noishel Mashuach Milchama Mishamish Tachtov, that the son of the Mashuach Milchama, if he passes away, who takes him over in that position? So I would think that it works the way it always works by a Kohen Gadol, that the son takes him over. Kederech shebenoish l'Kohen Gadol mishamish tachtov. Just like the halacha is regarding a son of a Kohen Gadol, the halacha is if a Kohen Gadol passes away, who's the first in line to take him over? His son. So it should be the same way when it comes to a Mashuach Milchama. The first in line to take him over is his son. Talmud Laimar, the pasuk says, no, that's not. But it's not. You don't apply that to a Mashuach Milchama. Why not? Because it says in the pasuk, Shivas Yamim Yilbeshem HaKohen Tachtov Mibanov. 7 days the Kohen Gadol will wear his garments Tachtov instead of his father Mibanov, from his children. So this is a pasuk where it speaks about the child, the son, taking over his father as the Kohen Gadol. But then the pasuk adds Asher Yavai El Oyel Moed. He comes inside the Oyel Moed. What do we learn from this? This is only regarding the Kohen Gadol that comes into the Oyel Moed. Regarding him, we say that when he passes away, his son is first in line to take him over. However, by the Mashuach Milchama that does not come into the Oyel Moed, his father, when the Mashuach Milchama passes away, his son is not first in line to take him over. That's the Braisa. So now the Gemara asks, if what Rav Dimi said is true, that the Mashuach Milchama comes and serves in the Beis HaMikdash just like a Kohen Gadol, he comes in with the Shmeina Begadim. If so, Mechzi Chazi, even the Mashuach Milchama is fit to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore he should be included in what it says there in the pasuk, Yovei L'Oel Mayid, and his son should take him over just like it is by a Kohen Gadol that passes away. Answers the Gemara, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Kachi Kama. This is how you learn Pshat in the Braisa according to Rav Dimi. Kol she'ikir mishichasei L'Oel Mayid. And only a Kohen Gadol, that the main point of him being anointed is to serve inside the Oyel Mayid, then his son takes him over. Yatzazeh, which excludes the Mashuach Milchama, even though he may go inside and serve with the Shmeina Begadim, but that wasn't the main purpose why he was anointed. She'ikir mishichasei L'Milchama. The main position that he was anointed for is to go out into the war to encourage the Yidden there. So therefore, by him, the pasuk of Yovei El Oyel Mayid does not apply, and therefore his son will not take him over when he passes away. Another question of Rav Dimi, Meisvei, we learned in the Braisa, Mashuach Milchama clearly says in the Braisa that this Kohen anointed for the war Eine Mishamish, when he comes and serves into the Beis HaMikdash, so he doesn't work, he can't serve in the Beis HaMikdash. Loi bar ba, not with the 4 garments k'kayin hedyet, like a kayin hedyet, and loi b'shmeina k'kayin gadol, and not even with 8 garments like a kayin gadol. So this brisa clearly says that he actually can't serve at all, not like a kayin hedyet, and not like a kayin gadol. So how does Rav Dimi say that he comes in wearing the shmeina begadim? So the Gemara answers, Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says, how do we understand Pshat in this brisa? Something is stranger. Elazar mashvislei. Not that he was elevated to a higher position as a Meshuach Muhammad. He becomes like a Zar. He's a stranger. He can't serve in the Beis HaMikdash at all. How could that be? Elo, the answer is, this brisa is telling me here a Gzeira midrabanan or a Takana midrabanan. Min HaTorah he could serve. What's the Takana midrabanan? Ella k'koyin gadol. The reason why this brisa is saying he can't serve like a koyin gadol with the shmeina begadim mishum eva. That's because of a feeling of hatred or a competition between him and the koyin gadol. They're both serving with the shmeina begadim. So therefore, we don't allow him to do that. This is something we had towards the beginning of the Masechta. If you remember, if there was a koyin gadol that became posel on Yom Kippur and you had to appoint another koyin gadol, what happens afterwards? Do you allow both of them to serve? Could you have 2 koyinim gedolim at the same time? So the Gemara says, no, you can't because of the same reason, Eva. And then, k'kayin hedyet, he also can't serve as a kayin hedyet, mishum mailam b'kaidish v'loy meridin. Because of mailam b'kaidish, because he has to go up and not down. Now that he was elevated to a higher status to serve as a Meshuach Muhammad, so he can't go down a level to be back like a regular kayin hedyet. So therefore, midrabanan, he can't serve not as a kayin gadol, not as a kayin hedyet. So this is not a question on Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi was saying the halacha min HaTorah. Min HaTorah, a Meshuach Muhammad that wants to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, he would have to wear the Shmeina Begadim. But midrabanan, they were masakin that he should not wear it because of Eva. Malei Rav Ada bar Abba, Rav Ada bar Abba, that is, L'Rava. So you asked the Rava a question. I'll bring you another place, another Tana. V'hai Tana, I'll bring you another Braisa, the Leslei Eva. He disagrees with this point that you're saying now, that it's only a Takana midrabanan, that there's an issue of Eva, of the competition between the 2 Kainim. He doesn't hold to that. And yet, it says over here, V'loi kameshamish. In this Braisa that we're about to quote, it clearly says, not like Rav Dimi, that the Meshuach Muhammad does not wear the Shmeina Begadim. And here this is a pretty lengthy Braisa. It goes through the halachas in general of a Kohen Gadol, and then it speaks about the Meshuach Muhammad, and towards the end of the Braisa we'll see the question here. The Tanya, so we learned in the Braisa, it says as follows, Dvarim sheben Kohen Gadol le Kohen Hedyet. The following halachas are halachas that apply only to a Kohen Gadol, and not by a Kohen Hedyet. So this is the distinctions between a Kohen Gadol and a Kohen Hedyet. The first one is par Kohen Mashiach. Rashi says you're not guided this, because the next thing that it says right here is the same as this. Par haba al kol mitzvahs. This is a par when a Kohen Gadol did an aveda b'sheigig on any of the avedas that are kares. So a Kohen does not bring a regular korban chatos like any other yid, which is brought from a goat. He has to bring a korban chatas, which is from a bull, from a par. This is a unique halacha regarding a Kohen Gadol, which does not apply to a Kohen Hedyet or any other yid. So that's one special thing about the Kohen Gadol. And also par Yoma Kippurim. Of course, the special par that the Kohen Gadol brings in Yom Kippur. Vasir Seifa. There's a korban mincha, which is brought from a 10th of Eifa that the Kohen Gadol has to bring every single day. We learned about this before, half in the morning and half in the afternoon. Another halacha, loy peireya. He does not allow his hair to grow long by when he's an oval, v'loy peirim, and he does not do kriya to tear his clothing when he's an avelus. Aval peirim hu milmata. If he wants, he could tear his clothing at the hem on the bottom of his garments. But va'hedyet, a kain hedyet milmaila, tears his garments when he's an oval on the top, just like everybody else. Another special halacha of the Kohen Gadol, ve'emet tama l'kreiva. He's not allowed to become tame even to his closest relatives. And also, u'mitzvah ala besula. By a Kohen Gadol, he has a mitzvah to get married to a besula. U'muzar ala almana. And he's warned, there's a lav that he's not allowed to marry an almana. U'machzir esaritzeach. Another halacha about the Kohen Gadol is, when the Kohen Gadol passes away, that's when a ritzeach that killed someone b'shegig, that's in Galus, leaves the city that he's in. Umakriv Einon, he can bring karbanis even as an Einon, which is on the day that a relative passes away. This is learned out over there from what happened by Nadav and Avihu, when Aaron HaKohen was allowed to bring the karbanis as an Einon. But ve'ena Eichel, even though he can serve as an Einon, But he does not eat from the kachim as an einan, and also the eina chaylik. He does not get a portion of those karbanis. If he can't eat from it, he doesn't get a portion of it either to eat later. V'naitel chaylik bereish, the Kohen Gadol takes a portion bereish from all the karbanis. He can, even though there's usually a beis av, there's the mishma that you divide it amongst the kohenim, but the Kohen Gadol could always come and take before everyone else. Umakriv chelik bereish, and the same thing is also with any of the avodas and the karbanas during the day. As we learned earlier in the mesechta, they had the payas, they made for everyone the lottery, which avodah is going to be done by whom. The Kohen Gadol comes and takes bereish, he can do whichever avodah he desires. Mishamesh b'shmeina kelim, and he wears the shmeina begadim for his avodah. Upater al tumas mikdash v'kedoshav. There's also a unique halacha regarding the Kohen Gadol, that is pater for the issur of going into the Beis HaMikdash when he's tamei, or eating kachim when he's tamei. This is all learned out from Karbanis. Most of this brayse, as Rashi is explained in Masechta Hayriyos. V'chal avedas Yom Kippurim, and all of the avedas, as we learned in this entire Masechta of Yom Kippur, einan ksheris elabai, could only be done through the Kohen Gadol. V'kulan. Now the Braisa continues and says, so till they were speaking about a regular Kohen Gadol that there was in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash. How did you appoint a Kohen Gadol in the times of the first Beis HaMikdash? They had a special oil, still from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, that they anointed him with. So he became a Kohen anointed by this oil. For Kulan, however, all of the same halachas that we just said here, that's unique for the Kohen Gadol, noyegais b'merubah begadim, are also going to be by a Kohen Gadol that becomes the Kohen Gadol, not by this oil that was hidden in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, but he's only a Kohen Gadol by the fact that he's wearing the extra garments. Chutz, there's a few exceptions that don't apply to this Kohen Gadol in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash that was never anointed with the oil. Mipar abba kol mitzvahs, the first thing we mentioned, the special carbon of a par that he brings by a chatos. So Rashi brings over there, the pasuk specifically says Kohen Mashiach. And v'kulan, now the Braisa continues and says, and all of these, noyegais b'meshuach sha'avar, that all of these apply, all the special halachas that we said over here that apply to a Kohen Gadol, also applies to a meshuach sha'avar. What is a meshuach sha'avar? So this refers to a Kohen Gadol where the Kohen Gadol that was serving the Beis HaMikdash became pasul for whatever reason, and they had to have a replacement Kohen Gadol, and they anointed a replacement, and then the original Kohen Gadol became fit to serve again. So therefore this new Kohen Gadol that they appointed is now avar, is now removed from his position. That's called a meshuach she'avar. So all of these halachas that we mentioned before apply to this meshuach she'avar, this second Kohen Gadol that was removed from his position. Chutz, besides Mipar Yom Kippurim, this Kohen Gadol that was now removed does not bring the Par Yom Kippur, and also the Vasira Seifa. The Vasira Seifa does not bring on every day, like the Kohen Gadol himself. Okay, but other than these 2 points, the Meshuach Sha'avar, everything else that we said before about the Kohen Gadol applies to him. And that includes also the fact that if he wants to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, he has to wear 8 garments. Shmeina begadim. So what do we see from this part of the Braisa so far? That this Tana in the Braisa is not concerned about Eva. He's not concerned about the competition, and therefore you can't have another Kohen wearing the 8 garments. It says here, even the Meshuach Sha'avar wears the Shmeina begadim. Then the Braisa continues and says, V'kulan, on the other hand, all of the things we said that's unique about the Kohen Gadol, Ein noyeges b'Meshuach Milchama, do not apply to the Meshuach Milchama, the person anointed in the war. That, in other words, including also wearing the Shmeina begadim. Chutz mechamisha dvarim ha'amurim beparsha. Besides 5 things that are written in the parsha, this is in the parsha there where it speaks about this, and Rashi brings in Vayikra Chof Aleph where it says V'kohen hagadol me'echav. So HaKohen hagadol me'echav, the kohen that's greater than the rest of them, so that includes even a Meshuach Milchama. So there are only 5 things that apply to a Kohen Gadol that apply to the Meshuach Milchama. What are they? Loi pareya, v'loi pairim, v'loi metama lekroivav. He's not allowed to let his hair grow long, he doesn't do kriya, and he doesn't get tameh to close relatives. U'mitzuva ala b'sula. And he's commanded to marry only a b'sula, u'muzar ala almana. And he's also warned to marry only an almana. U'machzer esaritzeach kedivri Rabbi Yehuda. Another detail, this is a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says, the kohen which is a Meshuach Milchama, when he passes away, the Ritzeach and Ir Miklot can leave. Chachamim disagree. Chachamim say no, that he cannot, when the Meshuach Milchama passes away, he cannot leave. Okay, so here, if you look at this whole Braisa, we have our question on Rav Dimi. Because on one hand, this Braisa does not hold to the concept of Eva, as I pointed out before. And on the other hand, the Braisa clearly says that regarding a Mashuach Mulchama, he does not wear the Shmeina Begadim, like Rav Dimi said. So you can't say that the reason is because of Eva. So we see that Minat Teire does not, it seems like even Minat Teire does not wear the Shmeina Begadim. So the Gemara answers, no, it's not a question. Ki lesle Eva. When does the Tana of this Braisa hold that Eva is not an issue, the hatred or the competition amongst them will not be an issue? B'dechvasei. When it's the someone else that's on the same level as the Kohen Gadol. Who's that? That's the Meshuach Sha'avar. When there was another Kohen that was appointed to the very same position as the Kohen Gadol himself, when he was Pasul. And now the original Kohen Gadol was brought back, and now he's on the same level as him. There, the Tana of this Braisa holds there's no Eva. The Kohen Gadol doesn't feel any hatred to someone else that's wearing the Shmeina Begadim that's on his level. But the Zuttamine, someone else though that's in a lesser position than him, which is what the Meshuach Mulchama is. He's also on a level of greatness, but he's not appointed to the same level as the Kohen Gadol himself. Islay. There, the Tana of this Braisa will agree that there's an issue of Eva, and therefore he can't wear the Shmeina Begadim. So therefore it's still all midrabanan. Minat Teire, Rav Dimi could still be right that it's learned from a pasuk that he has to wear the Shmeina Begadim. So therefore, this Braisa is not a question.
It doesn't serve Cholim something there.
Right, but that's only on Midrabana. So what the Gemara is saying is, when it said he doesn't serve, it's only Midrabana. Menat Teire, Rav Dimi is right that he could serve with and he has to serve with the Shmeina Begadim. Yosef Rabavo was sitting, he said the same halacha of Rav Dimi, that the Meshuach Mulchama has to wear Shmeina Begadim. Mishmei de Rav Yechanan. He said it instead of the name of Rav Dimi, he said it in the name of Rav Yechanan. So when he said that, Ahadrinu Rabami v'Rabasi la'apayu. Rabami and Rabasi turned their faces away in disagreement. They didn't clearly say, we disagree with you, but they turned their face away to sort of indicate that they did. No, Rabbi Yechanan is not the one that said this. Rav Dimi said this. Iked others reported that this incident happened with Rab Chia. Rab Chia bar Abba Omra, Rab Chia bar Abba said it in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, V'adrinu Rabami v'Rabasi la'apayu. And Rabami and Rabasi turned their faces away. So the Gemara now questions the second version here. Maskefla Rav Papa. So Rav Papa asked, Bishleim Rabavo. If the way the story was reported is true that Rabavo is the one that said it in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, Mishum Yekara the Bekeser, so I can understand why Rav Ami and Rav Asi didn't directly tell him you're making a mistake. Because Rabavo, as Rashi brings from different places in the Gemara, he had a very prominent position and a close connection to the king, to the Caesar, and therefore they did not want to offend him directly and speak to him in such a way, so they only turned away their face. Mishum Yekara the Bekeser. Rab Chia bar Abba. But if it was Rab Chia bar Abba that reported this in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, and they disagreed, why didn't they tell him directly? That Loi Omer Rabbi Yechanan Hachi, that Rabbi Yechanan did not say so. So therefore, the Rav Papa is saying the first version is probably right, that Rabbi Avo was the one that reported this, and therefore Rav Ami Rav Asi did not want to directly tell him he's wrong, they only turned away their face. Now the Gemara is going to bring a different version of this halacha over here. When Ravin came, Omar, so he said over this halacha about the Meshuach Muhammad differently. Nishal Itmar. When we learned this halacha about the Meshuach Muhammad that he wears the 8 garments, it wasn't referring to him wearing the 8 garments when he goes into the Beis HaMikdash if he wants to serve in the Beis HaMikdash. What it was referring to is Nishal. Urim v'tumim. If you want to ask him a question from the Urim v'tumim, and he, the Meshuach Muhammad, could also be asked a question from the Urim v'tumim, he has to put on all of the 8 garments, including the chayshan, with the Urim v'tumim inside, and then they could ask him a question from the Urim v'tumim. That's what it was said regarding. Not regarding serving the Beis HaMikdash. Tanya nami hachi, we learned another brayso like this version, begadim shekohen gadol mishamish ben, the same 8 garments a kohen gadol wears when he comes into the Beis HaMikdash and serves there. Meshuach Muhammad nishal behen. The Meshuach Muhammad does not serve with these 8 garments, but if they want to ask him a question from the Urim v'tumim, he has to wear all 8 garments. So this is different than the first version that we had it from Rav Dimi. That's why the Gemara brought in this whole Indian here.
How many are there?
I guess more than one, the kohen gadol and the I guess so. The Meshuach Muhammad had another pair of 8 garments, including the
In the back of Kohen Gadol.
for the Skan Kohen Gadol as well. Correct. You have to have the Urim v'tumim in it. especially according to some opinions, you must have the Urim V'Tumim, it's mashlim, without that, it's like you're lacking the begadim. So there's a machlokes about that. Okay. Now the Gemara comes to this subject of Urim V'Tumim. How exactly did the Urim V'Tumim work? Tana Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa, Keitzad Shoyelin. How do you ask the question from the Urim V'Tumim? Hashoyel Panav Klape Nishal. The one that's asking the question stands facing the Kohen Gadol that he's asking from. Vahanishal, and the Kohen Gadol that you're asking the question from him, Klape Shchina. He faces towards the Shchina, which means that he faces his head down towards the Urim V'Tumim. Hashoyel Loime. So now the Shoyel asks the question as follows, and here the Gemara brings an example of a question that was actually asked. That David HaMelech asked this question. Erdeif, should I chase them? Achrei Agdud, after the troops? That's the way you ask the question. Va'nishal oimer, and the initial answers, this is what it says there in the Pasuk, I believe. Koya Mar Hashem, this is what the Eibishter says, Alei v'hatzlach. Maybe it's not in Beferish in the Pasuk, but this is, okay. Koya Mar Hashem, Alei v'hatzlach. The Eibishter says, Alei v'hatzlach, go up and you'll succeed. That's the response. Rabbi Yehuda says when the Kohen Gadol responds, Ein tzarich loima koyam Hashem. He doesn't include in his response koyam Hashem, ela alei v'hatzlach. He just gives the actual response of alei v'hatzlach. The Gemara is soon going to say where you see the response of the Urim V'Tumim. As we know, it's the actual letters of the Choshen that the response comes from. So when the Kohen Gadol gives him the answer that he sees in the Choshen, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, he just says the answer without saying koyam Hashem. Another thing about how you ask. Ein shoyelim b'koil. When he asks the question, he doesn't ask it with a loud voice. Shenema, the pasuk says, v'sho'al loy. He asks to him. So the Gemara darshans, v'sho'al loy actually means to himself. That you ask like you're speaking to yourself. But on the other hand, v'loy maharer b'libo. The question you're asking cannot be just in your thoughts. You have to say it. Shenema v'sho'al loy lifnei Hashem. Some take out the girsa lifnei Hashem. Rashi says that the drasha of the pasuk v'sho'al loy is actually connected to the continuation of that pasuk. What does it say afterwards in the pasuk? Al piv yetzu v'al piv yavoyu. So even though al piv simply is going on later, that al piv of what the Urim V'Tumim will say, but the Gemara here is darshaning v'sho'al loy al piv. When you ask the question, you should ask it. You have to speak it with your mouth. So you don't say it loud, but you still have to say it. So how do you say it? So you say it low. You ask the question low. Like Chana when she davened, Shanema, there it says, V'chana hi medaberes al libo, she spoke in her heart, she spoke with a very low voice. That's how you ask the question. Another halacha regarding the Urim V'Tumim, ein shaylin shnei dvarim ke'echad. You don't ask two questions at once. V'im shal, if you did ask two questions at once, ein machzirin loy ela echad, you only answer him one of the questions, ein machzirin loy ela rishon, you first answer him the first question that he asked. Shanema, you see this in a pasuk, where there were two questions that David HaMelech asked. One question he asked was, this is when Shaul HaMelech was chasing him. So one question he asked was, Hayazgiruni bale Ke'ilah? Are the people from Ke'ilah going to give me over to Shaul HaMelech if I hide by them? B'yoda in his hands. And another question he asked was, Hayedet Shaul v'goyim? Is Shaul going to come to chase me here? And Vayomer Hashem, the answer that was given to him is, Yedet. Yes, Shaul is going to come after you. So they only answered him one question. But now the Gemara asks on this, didn't you say that you only answered the first question? Over here, he was answered only one question, but he was answered the second question. So the Gemara answers, David Shoal Shaloi Keseder. David asked his questions out of order. And they answered him in the right order. The first thing David should have asked is Shaul HaMelech B'chlal chasing me? The second question he should have asked is, and are the people going to give me over into his hands? So v'kivin sheyada shaloi keseder, v'kivin sheyada sheshal shaloi keseder, since he knew that he asked out of order, chaza v'shal keseder. Then he asked in order again. Shenemar hayazgiru bale kiila oisi, v'esanoshai biyad shol. Are the people of Ke'ilah going to give me over and my people into the hands of Shaul? Vayomer Hashem yazgiru. The Eibishter said that they're going to give you over. Okay, so then in other words, afterwards he was answered again on his second question because he asked out of order. So first he was answered on the question that he should have asked first, and then afterwards he was asked on the second. He was answered on the second question. Another thing about the Urim V'Tumim, even though we said you shouldn't ask 2 questions at once, but vim hutzrach hadavar l'shnayim machzirin loy. If you must ask both questions at once, as Rashi says, if it's extremely necessary, you have no choice, you have to ask both questions at once and you can't wait, then you could ask and you'll get the answer to both of your questions. Machzirin loy shnayim. Shenema, the Gemara brings the example of this, Vayishal David b'Hashem leimor, he asked the question, ha'erdef achar hagdud, should I run after the troops, hazeh, ha'asigenu, and will I reach them? Will I be successful in reaching them? And the Eibishter answered him on both questions. Chase after them, ki haseg taseg. You will reach them, and vahatzel tatzel, and you will save them. This is over there a case of the Amalekim, I think, that they captured the women, and therefore David HaMelech wanted to know if you should go and chase them and reach them, and the Eibishter answered them both at once. Now the Gemara brings another detail about how powerful the words of the Urim v'Tumim are. When a Navi, there's a Gzeira that said to a Navi, that's something that could be returned. If you do tshuva, so then it could go back. Rashi brings the example for this from the story of Yuma. When Yuma went and he was told that the city of Nineveh is going to be destroyed, but if they do tshuva, then it's going to be returned. It won't happen. But Gzeiras Urim v'Tumim, anything that's said through the Urim v'Tumim, that's something that never returns. Shenema, because regarding Urim v'Tumim it says, b'mishpat ha'urim. It uses the term mishpat. So what does the word mishpat mean? Just like a halacha that you paskin justice, once a court paskins a din, it's never taken back. Lama nikrishman Urim v'Tumim. What's this name? Urim v'Tumim. Urim shemeirin as divrayim. Urim means that it makes its words very clear. Tumim means shemashlimim as divrayim, that it's mashlim, meaning, as we just said, it fulfills it. Whatever the Urim v'Tumim says happens. Now the Gemara asks a question on this. This seems to be an example where it did not happen. Vim taimar begivas binyamin mipnei ma lo yishlimu. By the story of Givas binyamin, why was what the Urim v'Tumim said not fulfilled? So the story of Givas binyamin is a very, very tragic story in history of Klal Yisrael, where there was the Shevet of Binyamin that did a big Aveda, and therefore the Yidden wanted to go, and the Yidden asked first for Shevet Binyamin to give over that Bal Aveda into their hands, and Shevet Binyamin did not listen, and the Yidden sort of went out into a civil war against Shevet Binyamin. And they asked by the Urim v'Tumim, should we go and fight against our brothers Binyamin? And the Urim v'Tumim answered yes. But if you look there in the story, twice when they went to fight with them, they were unsuccessful. Only the third time were they successful against Shevet Binyamin. So why did it happen that 2 times the Urim v'Tumim was not successful? So the Gemara explains the reason is Heim shaloi bichanu imli natseach imli notzach. When they asked the first 2 times, they weren't careful to decipher whether they are going to be victorious or they will be defeated. They asked the question, should we go fight? And the answer was given, yes, you should go fight. But they weren't given the answer whether they're going to be victorious or not. But ubachreina, the last time they asked from the Urim v'Tumim, shebichenu, so then they asked his skimu. Then it was the Urim v'Tumim agreed that they should go and fight, and they're going to be victorious. Shenemar Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron oimed lefneim bayamim ahem leimar. Ha'isiv, and they asked the question, Ha'isiv oid lotzes l'mulchame and b'nei binyamin achi, should we go out and fight again with Binyamin our brother? Im echtal, or I should hold back. Vayemer Hashem, and the Eibishter said, Alu, you should go, ki machar etnenu biyadecha. Tomorrow I will give him into your hands. So this was only the last time when they spelled out that they wanted to know if they're going to be successful. So then the Urim v'Tumim gave them the answer that they will be. Now the Gemara explains how exactly the Urim v'Tumim itself works. How does it give its message? Keitzad Nases, how does it happen? How does it show? Rabbi Yechanan says, Boiltais, the letters of the Urim v'Tumim stick out, it shines out. And then the Kayin has to put together the letters. As Rashi gives the example of the word Alei. So Alei, the ayin of the word Shimon, and then the Lamed of Levi, and the Hey of Yehuda will stick out, and the Kayin will have to put together the word Alei. Shlokish says, Mitztarfais. Alei means go up and fight, or whatever. Reish Lakish says mitzdarfais. It didn't only shine out each letter separately and you had to combine them together, but the Kohen Gadol also saw the combination. The Eibishter brought the combination together. So now the Gemara asks a question. If the message comes through the letters of the Chayshen, it's missing a few letters. V'halaksiv b'hu tzadi. There is no tzadik there in the entire, so we had the 12 Shvatim that were inscribed in the Chayshen, and all the 12 Shvatim, there is no tzaddik. So how did it give an answer if it had to include a tzaddik in it? Like, for example, Rashi brings one of the examples actually that it said before, the Hatzel Tatzel that we just had. Hatzel has a tzaddik in it. So where's the tzaddik? Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, besides the names of the Shvatim, Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov ksiv sham. It says the names of the three Avos. So therefore there's the tzaddik and the Yitzchak. Fragt the Gemara, but v'haloi ksiv tes, there's another letter missing. There's no tes over there. So where's the tes? Amar Avacha bar Yaakov, Shiftei Yeshurun ksiv sham. Then it also is written these two words, Shiftei Yeshurun, which has a tes in it. Fragt the Gemara Meisvei, regarding what we just said, how the message of the Urim V'Tumim is given, it says in the Braisa, Kol Kain Shein Medaber B'Ruach HaKodesh, any Kain that does not speak with Ruach HaKodesh, Shechina Shayra Olav, and the Shechina does not dwell on him, Ein Shaylam Ba. You can't ask from him the question. Shaharei Shoal Tzadik V'Al Saloi, we see by David HaMelech, he asked the question, when he was running away from Avshalom, he asked from Tzadik, which he had the Shechina that dwelled upon him, and he had an answer for him. Avyasa, when he asked the question from Avyasa, V'Loi Al Saloi, and the answer he gave him was not the right answer. So you see that the answer is from the Ruach HaKodesh of the Kohen Gadol. Shenem Avayal Avyasa At Toim Kalaam V'Goymer, and then later David HaMelech replaced Avyasa with Tzaddik because he didn't give him the right answer. So how are we saying that it's the actual letters of the Urim V'Tumim that give the answer? From this brayse, it seems like, no, it's the Ruach HaKodesh of the Kohen Gadol that gives the answer. So the one answer is, Siyua have a Messiah bahadayu. The Kohen Gadol wearing the Urim V'Tumim, if he himself was a tzaddik and has the Shechina upon him, so then together he brought the schus that the letter should come out from the Chayshen, but it goes together. You have to be a Kohen Gadol about Ruach HaKodesh and the letters of the Urim V'Tumim.
Not every Kohen was like this?
No, not every Kohen had the schus to this. What else did it say in the Mishnah? That the answer for the Urim V'Tumim is not given to anybody, only for a king. Then it said, or a Av Bezdin, or if it's for the purpose for the whole Yid, for all the Yid. How do I know? This Amar Abavo, the Makro, the Pasuk says that when you ask the question from the Urim V'Tumim, so v'lifnei Elazar HaKohen Yamoid v'shoaloi b'mishpat ha'urim v'goyme. What does it say in the continuation of the Pasuk? Al piv yetzu v'al piv yavoyu. Who? Then the pasuk says, who's going to ask? Who v'chol b'nei Yisrael itoy v'chol eidos. So the Gemara Darshan is who ze melech. Who refers to the king? That's what the pasuk there is talking about. It's talking about Yeshua. That when Yeshua is going to take over Moshe Rabbeinu, he's going to ask the question from Elazar Kohen. And then when it says v'chol b'nei Yisrael itoy ze Mashuach Milchama. This refers to the Mashuach Milchama that's going out to fight with all the Yidden. He's going to ask the question from the Urim V'Tumim. Or according to what we learned before, he himself has Urim V'Tumim. And v'chala eida zu Sanhedrin. This is the Sanhedrin that can ask from the Urim V'Tumim, but other than these three, nobody could ask any question from the Urim V'Tumim. Hadron Allah Bale Kohen Gadol. The conclusion of the 7th Perek of Mesechta Yuma. We start the new Mesechta here. So as Tosfos over here says in the beginning of this Perek, that finishing all the halachas of the Avodah of Yom Kippur, the Mesechta was very much in order. It started from Afrishin, in the 7 days before Yom Kippur, and it went through all the Avodas in order, from the beginning till the end of the day. Now we're finished with all of that, and we come now to the halachas of the Isser, the Surim that there are in Yom Kippur. Sagt the Mishnah, Yom Kippurim, the day of Yom Kippur, Asa b'achila b'shti, not allowed to eat and drink, b'rechitze, not allowed to wash, b'sicha, and to anoint yourself in any way, or b'nidas a sandal, to put on shoes, or b'tashma shamita, marital relations. As Rashi brings, this is from the pasuk v'nisam es nafshi seichem. You have to inflict infliction upon your soul, and therefore these are the 5 things, if hey inuyim, that you're not allowed to do, that bring pleasure on Yom Kippur. But however, there's an exception. Va'amelech, va'akala, a king, and akala yirchatzu as peneim. They are allowed to wash their face even on Yom Kippur. As Rashi brings them, king is melech b'yafyei techzen einecha, and akala has to be beautiful for her husband for the first 30 days. That's what akala is. Va'achaya, another exception is a woman that just gave birth, tinalis a sandal. She can wear shoes for comfort. So it's otherwise it's cold and it's difficult for her. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim oisrim. Chachamim disagree with all of these exceptions. Ha'oichel ke'kaiseves agasa, a person that eats the amount of a kaiseves agasa, which is a large date. Kamaya v'kegarina, the size of the date and its pit. That's the amount to be chayev if you eat on Yom Kippur. V'asheisim aloi lugmav, a person that eats drinks a cheek full of liquid. Chayev is going to be chayev for eating and drinking on Yom Kippur. Kala eichlin mitzdarfen lekaiseves. Whatever foods you eat will combine to this shear of kaiseves, and v'chala mashkin and all kinds of drink mitzdarfen l'mloi lugmav will combine together to the shear of m'loi lugmav. Ha'oichel v'shaise ein mitzdarfen. But if you eat a little and you drink a little, those two do not combine together to the shear to be chayiv. Zok the Gemara, what did it say in the beginning of the Mishnah? Yoma Kippurim aser. It said in the Mishnah that Yoma Kippurim it's aser. These things are aser to eat and drink. Frek the Gemara. Aser? Why does it say aser? Onish karasu. It's much more than just an iser. It's an einish of karas. It should have said that in these things you chayiv karas. Amar Abila v'teimer Rabbi Yirmiyah leinitzrecha ela lachatzi shir. When the Mishnah here says aser, what it's saying is that these things are aser. It's going to be aser to eat and drink, even if it's less than the shir, even a half a shir. And this is the beginning of the whole sugya of chatzi shir aser min atayra. We'll start it off today and we'll conclude it tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem on the next stuff. So the Gemara here says, ha niche. This is a good pshat for the Mishnah. Lamanda Amar, according to the opinion that says chatzi shir aser min atayra, that even a half a shear is also aser min atayra. But the other opinion that says that a half a shear is going to be mutter min atayra, what are we going to say? So what does the Mishnah here mean when it says aser? So the Gemara answers. So first the Gemara brings the source of this machlokes. The itmar, we learned this machlokes. Chatzi shir. What happens if you're over? This is not only regarding Yom Kippur. B'chlal, all isurim of the Torah. Well, there's actually machlokes exactly. This applies to all shirim of the Torah. This machlokes of chatzi shir. So this machlokes between Rabbi Yechanan and Reish Lakish. So Rabbi Yechanan Amar asam min atayra. Even a half a shir, there's no chiyuv, but it's still asam min atayra. Reish Lakish Amar mutter min atayra. There's no chiyuv, there's no einish, and there's also completely mutter min atayra. So hanichel Rabbi Yechanan. The Mishnah here, when it says aser, is referring to a half a shir. El Reish Lakish. But according to Reish Lakish, how could you say Michael and Meima? What is the meaning of the word aser? So the Gemara answers Meide Reish Lakish aser midrabanan. Reish Lakish agrees that even a half a shear is aser midrabanan. Okay, we'll stop over here today. Okay.